once again to our show that is called Real Shame, where we watch movies that we should have seen from our list of shame or list of movie blind spots. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And this week we're watching two movies that I've never seen. But before we get into that, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. So, Andy, what have you been watching?
Not much. I feel like I've been watching, so as we're filming this, the Olympics are still going on. Yeah. So I feel like I've been watching, more than anything else, I've been watching the 2020 Olympics, 2021 Olympics, but it's 2020, according to all the branding that they have. Because it was supposed to happen last year, and because they had already made all the signs and stuff and had them, they just left them. You know, they didn't want to it costs too much to repaint everything and redo everything, so in the arenas and everything, it still says 2020 Olympics.
Do you think they're going to go 2024 for the next one or 2025?
The plan is still to do 2024.
Oh, so 3 years. Interesting.
In Paris.
They want to get back on track.
Yeah. Next one's supposed to be in Paris. And then 2028, it's going to be back in Los Angeles.
Oh.
USA. Okay. But I did take the time to watch at least one film, and it's a musical film. So it goes along with the stuff that we're doing this week. It is a movie that I never heard of, but it was put out by the Criterion Collection, or put out by Criterion. It's in the Criterion Collection. I believe it came out in 2015, maybe. It's called The Lure. It is a Polish film, if I'm not mistaken. It is about a couple of mermaids that they don't wash up on shore. They're at the shoreline, and there's a nightclub. It takes place in the 1980s. There's a nightclub that's nearby, and some of the people that work in the nightclub help them out of the water, and they start to work at the nightclub, and they're kind of one of the acts. And it's well known to everyone that they're actually mermaids. They don't try and keep it a secret. Well,
they're not like off skating their fish parts.
No, that's part of their act. They jump into some water and they turn into the mermaids, and of course it wows the audience. But it's described as a musical horror film, although I would not say that it's really much of a horror film at all. But it is a musical. There are a lot of songs, and I thought some of the songs were actually pretty good and kind of catchy. Overall, the movie, it's not great. I thought it was interesting what they did visually. It's pretty cool. But it's not the kind of movie I don't think I would revisit. Again, I thought some of the songs were kind of cool, but maybe if I wanted to hear one of the songs, I'll just pull it up on YouTube. I don't think I'd watch the movie again. Overall, it's interesting. I could see why a company like Criterion put it out, but didn't love it, didn't hate it. It's just kind of somewhere in between for me. But that's all that I've watched aside from the movies we're talking about this week and the Olympics. So what have you been watching?
I watched one documentary that I didn't know much about, but I'm glad I did. It's called Woodstock 99, Peace, Love, and Rage. I didn't know. I think I vaguely remember that there was a Woodstock in 1999.
Yeah, me too.
I know of the original Woodstock that happened in, 69, I believe. Then there was one in 94 that bands that I liked played on. And then they tried to recreate that magic by doing one 30 years later, 1999. And they had a bunch of bands that, even at the time, I was not the biggest fan of playing.
No.
But it's a really good documentary. It's on HBO Max. It's on HBO. I found it very interesting and very informative about the whole concert and everything that was kind of going on and kind of the culture around it. So I recommend it if you're vaguely interested in that. I think it's worth the time watching and stuff like that.
I definitely want to watch it.
The other thing I watched was also musician based, and it was a movie from I think 2001. It's Rockstar starring Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. This movie I shouldn't like, but I do like. It's just so silly and weird that it's endearing to me at some point. And
it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember liking it.
You can obviously tell Mark Wahlberg, even though he was a musician, he's not singing at all. It's definitely been dubbed on that stuff. But there's kind of like we'll get into with our feature review with Blues Brothers. His backing band is made up of real musicians like Zakk Wylde's there. I mean, we have Dominic West, he's an actor, but you have Zakk Wylde, you have John Bonham's son, I don't remember his first name, on there. So you have these musicians that are kind of...
Jason Bonham.
Yeah. Bonham. So a part of this stuff too, so it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by Rockstar and enjoying it for whatever reason.
Yeah. Wait, this is the first time you saw it?
Yeah, first time I watched it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to watch it again. I liked it. I remember. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I remember it has some of the guys. It at least has the lead singer of Third Eye Blind in it.
Does it really?
Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure.
I didn't check. I don't
know if the rest. I don't know if the rest of the Third Eye Blind cronies are in there or not, but I know he's in there.
I mean, it's not a great movie, but it's there's some fun. There's some funness to it.
Sure, I agree.
All right,
based on my vague recollection of it.
Yeah. So let's get into our featured review, and that's going to be
The Blues Brothers from 1980. Jake and Elwood Blues are two brothers who find out that the orphanage where they were raised needs $5,000 or else it will close its doors. So they set out to get the band back together and throw a concert to raise the needed money. They're on a mission from God. They're the Blues Brothers.
The county took a tax assessment of this property last month. They want $5,000.
Doesn't the church have to pay that?
They would if they were interested in keeping the place. But they aren't. The Archbishop wants to sell this building outright to the Board of Education.
What's going to happen to you?
I'll be sent to the missions, Africa, Latin America, Korea.
Forget it. $5,000, no problem. We'll have it for you in the morning. Let's go, Elwood.
No, no! I will not take your filthy, stolen money.
So The Blues Brothers was directed by John Landis. He was coming off a hit that he also did with John Belushi called Animal House, which you might have heard of. The movie itself was written by Blues Brothers, that is, not Animal House. Blues Brothers was written by John Landis as well as Dan Aykroyd, who, of course, plays Elwood Blues, one of the Blues Brothers. The other Blues Brother is the late, great John Belushi. Jake Blues is his character. The movie has... Who doesn't it have? And who's not in this movie? I think it's maybe the better question. But the movie stars Kathleen Freeman. She plays Sister Mary Stigmata. She is in Singing in the Rain, which we've done on the show, in a small role. Henry Gibson plays the head of in the movie they call themselves the American Socialist White People's Party, but Elwood Blues refers to them as Illinois Nazis. He plays the head kind of Illinois Nazi. John Candy's in this movie.
Yep.
The late great John Candy, a young Carrie Fisher, fresh off of Star Wars, and this came out the same year as Empire Strikes Back. Actually, they both came out in the summer. Cab Calloway's in this. So as far as musicians go, you got Cab Calloway, James Brown is in this, Aretha Franklin's in this, Ray Charles. We just talked about Ray Charles when we did Ray on the show with Jamie Foxx. Ray tries to shoot the guy who would grow up to be Argyle in Die Hard.
Argyle's in this.
John Lee Hooker, the great blues guy, is in this. And then you've got cameos from Frank Oz, Steven Spielberg, singer Stephen Bishop, model and singer Twiggy. John Landis himself is in this movie. Joe Walsh of the Eagles is in it right at the very end. Shaka Khan is one of the choir members at the church with James Brown. Paul Rubens, better known sometimes as Pee Wee Herman, plays a waiter in one scene. And Ralph Foodie. Who is Ralph Foodie? Well, he's in Home Alone, where the Angels with Filthy Souls that Macaulay Culkin watches. He's the guy who's
Keep the change,
you filthy animal. That's Ralph Foodie. He's in it towards the end. He plays one of the police dispatchers, and he says something like, excessive force against the Blues Brothers has been authorized. Yep. That's Mr. Ralph Foodie. I do want to mention that I think it's kind of cool. There's a little bit of a connection. James Brown is in this. John Landis, there is a concert film called The Tammy Show, which Tammy, I had to look this up. When they promoted the movie, they said it stood for Teenage Awards Music International. They also said Teenage Music International. So first it was Teenage Awards Music International, then they left out awards and said Teenage Music International. Either way, the acronym is TAMI. James Brown is in that concert, and John Landis is actually in the audience as a younger man. Because the movie came out in 1964, he would have been 14 years old, I believe.
Wow.
But then he got to work with James Brown as an adult. He was in Blues Brothers. He's also in Blues Brothers 2000, which I'll talk about towards the end. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. You go see a concert with a guy, and then later on you get to work with that same guy.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. And if you pause the Tammy show just right, you can see John Landis if you recognize him. It's a teenager. I've seen like a little clip where they circle him. They're like, "Look, it's John Landis."
And you're like, yeah, I believe that.
All right, so now that I've gone through everybody and their dog that's in this movie. This is a movie that I've seen. This is the third time watching this film.
Magic thing.
That's right. Third time I've watched it, but you've never seen it. We have mentioned it, I want to say a couple of times on the show just for various reasons. I don't remember exactly what the context was, but I figured since we did Ray and we did Shine, kind of keep the music train a-rolling.
I'm
so,
all about that.
Well, we decided to do the Blues Brothers, so I guess... What did you know about Blues Brothers? Obviously, you knew who they were.
Yeah,
I presume you've seen
yeah.
Saturday Night Live at least once or twice.
I've seen Saturday Night Live. I've not seen their skit.
Not seen their sketch. But what were some? I can't talk. What were some of your thoughts about the good old Blues Brothers? First of all, are you a fan of the blues?
Sure. I mean, I like the
okay.
Rock and roll stems from the blues, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, I like Eric Clapton and all that early 70s rock that were English musicians basing their music off the American blues tradition. So maybe like I like the blues once removed a little bit. I mean, I like B.B. King and
Gotcha.
I listen to that kind of stuff, but more modern on that stuff. I've seen the Blues Brothers 2000 at least once because that played all the time on HBO. Didn't play the Blues Brothers very much. So I kind of knew about it. I knew that it was an SNL sketch or skit or whatever, and I knew that they were going to get the band together. I knew that they had that police cruiser, and I knew some of the touch points that they'd hit in this movie like that.
Yeah, and they're on a mission from God.
They're on a mission from God,
that.
which you hear like 6 times in this movie, which it's like Dan Aykroyd's only line. So I think with this movie, I'm not going to make a lot of friends going on with this. This movie didn't really work for me that much. It felt... I don't know if I would have liked it more if I was more familiar with the sketch and all that kind of stuff and more endeared with it, because I think from what I understand from the sketches, just they kind of come on and then they do like a blues song and that's about it, right? And maybe with that week's guest star or whatnot, I would assume.
Yeah, I think they did like a musical number. They did some musical numbers on SNL.
Yeah.
They were kind of the musical guest, so to speak. Yeah.
So it just felt like, what am I trying to say? I felt like part of me felt like it was trying too hard a little bit. Like it was really trying to win us over on the antics and everything that was going on in this movie. And that just didn't really resonate with me. And it didn't feel like very cohesive, right? It just felt like it's a bunch of little things kind of tied together and all that kind of stuff. And we've seen movies where people with like the Muppets, like famously, their movies are about getting the Muppets back together. So I've seen movies where it's about, okay, let's bring the band back together, and maybe they all stem from this. Let's bring this group back together to do one thing. But for this movie, it just felt like each of those kind of things they were doing and the way they were bringing in just didn't feel very like cohesive, about it. So for me, honestly, it didn't really resonate and do much for me at all.
But none of it was funny?
No, I didn't laugh once.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Wow.
It's just kind of like I would have to ask after this. I'm like, what's supposed to be funny about it?
I mean, I don't know that Jake and Elwood. So, well, I'll launch into my spiel about this film. Well, I had no interest in seeing this when I was younger because I was like, the blues. I don't like the blues. Why would I like this movie? If it's about the blues, I don't want to see it. So I would see like clips of it on TV and I would change the channel. I don't want to watch that. It's stupid. I think I saw them on. I didn't see them when they originally SNL aired back then.
Like late 70s.
I'm old. I'm not that old. But I think I've seen probably their clips from SNL, at some point in my life, and they didn't do anything for me. Yeah. Again, and as a kid, I was like, I don't care about the blues. Now, as an adult, I'm more receptive to different kinds of music, and I do like some blues music. But I still had no interest in seeing this movie, and I didn't see it until probably within the last 10 years or so. I finally got around to seeing it, and I think at the time, Because I want to say I watched Animal House and this for the first time within the last 10 years, and I
Yeah.
think I watched them pretty close together because I was like, I've not really seen very much John Belushi stuff, and he died pretty young. He didn't make
Yeah.
that many movies. I don't remember exactly how many he made, but it was less than 10, I
Yeah, I
believe.
think it was like 5. It was really low.
So I think I watched both of those, and they're both John Landis movies, as I mentioned. Hey, your name just popped up on the screen there for
I
a
know,
second.
it's weird.
But I think I was let down by both films when I saw them originally because I just didn't think either one was that funny. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't really get the hype behind these.
And this was 10 years ago.
Whatnot. Yeah,
or-
within the
or-
last 10 years. Yeah, I didn't really get the hype. I have still not gone back and revisited Animal House. I probably need to do that. Have you seen that? I can't remember. We might do that on the show.
Yeah, I don't know
Maybe
if
not.
I've seen it. I have to think about it. I don't think I have.
I mean, if you haven't, maybe we can do that one of these days. But Blues Brothers, I did watch it for the second time 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody else that was over at my house wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll watch it. And the second time, I had just a completely different take on it. I think I maybe just hyped it up too much before I saw it the first time, and I probably hyped up John Belushi too much before I saw it the first time. But when I saw it the second time, I think this movie is great. I really, really enjoy this movie. Now, I agree in the sense that the movie is very kind of episodic. They're here, and then they go see this guy, and then they go see this guy, and then they go see this guy. But I think the movie works because of the musical performances, because I think a lot of the musical performances in the movie are good. Like Aretha Franklin sings "Think" in the diner. Ray Charles sings "Shake a Tail Feather."
Yeah.
I don't know what James Brown is singing at the church, but man,
Tony
I want to go to
Hooker
that
sings,
church.
yeah.
I want to go there. The guys are doing flips and backflips. I love that you guys are clearly on trampolines because they're way up in the doing backflips and whatnot. I just eat all that stuff up. I don't know that the Blues Brothers themselves are all that funny. They have a few. I would say they have a few funny lines, but their kind of deadpan, nonplussed demeanor is kind of what they're all about. They're like, yeah, we're on a mission from God, but he doesn't say it like in a funny way. He just kind of matter-of-factly states it. And even when he's talking about the Socialist Party, he's like, Illinois Nazis, what are they going to think of next or something, stuff like that. I don't know that necessarily what they say is funny, but things like Ray Charles firing a gun at the kid just when he tries to reach. Again, the kid that would be Argyle in Die Hard, he tries to reach up for the guitar. Or Carrie Fisher, who has like a rocket launcher, and then she has a flamethrower, and then she has a machine gun. And you're like, who is this person? And over the course of the film, as they go from place to place to place, they get more and more people that are after them. So first it's just Carrie Fisher, and she's after them the whole time. The Socialist White People's Party is after them because they ruined their demonstration, right? They almost run them over.
We have the good old boys.
All of the state troopers in the world are after them, it seems like. The good old boys, because they take their place at Bob's Country Burger or Bob Country Bar or whatever it is.
Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, Bob's Burgers. They take their place there, but just all that stuff. It just compounds, and I just think it gets really, really funny and really, really absurd.
Yeah.
Again, I think if you just look at this movie as almost like a musical and just kind of enjoy the musical numbers, and then you have the other stuff that kind of goes in between. So maybe you look at it as like almost like a concert film, like. Song Remains the Same by Led Zeppelin, the movie is a concert, but it also has like scripted stuff, which is just weird and bizarre. But I think if you kind of view this movie as that, it works. I also think this movie works as just like one of those lunacy mayhem movies, like it's a mad world. Because those movies always have huge casts. Rat Race is another one. Cannonball Run. They've got huge casts with tons and tons of cameos, and it's always about a group of people trying to make it from point A to point B and find some money or raise some money. In this case, whatever. I think it works either way. This movie commits the cardinal sin for me of it's a comedy that's over 2 hours long or 2 hours. And I watched the extended version, which is 2.5 hours.
But you don't mind it?
But I don't. I actually don't. I eat this movie up. In fact, when I was done watching it, I went back and watched some of the musical numbers just by themselves because I just enjoy them so much. I watched the church part by itself. I watched Ray Charles singing "Shake a Tail Feather" by itself. I think it's a great and funny movie. And I did not think that way the first time I saw it. So who knows? Maybe if you watch it a second time, you might warm up to it.
I might be in that book. Because for me, like, the musical numbers just seemed... They didn't really stand out. Like, I really liked Cab Calloway's... Minnie the Moocher. Like, I thought that was interesting and well done. And I liked them when they were at the country bar. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. Like, behind the chicken wire and all that kind of stuff, and how they were playing rawhide. I like that aspect of it, and I kind of wish it was more that. I guess I think the Aretha Franklin, I mean, she's amazing, right? It really stood out to me, but the James Brown number in the church really didn't do it. I don't know. I think maybe I'm your thing. Maybe I didn't know what to expect, so I was just like, oh wow, this movie is just.
Well, Kirby, I talked to Kirby about it. She hates it. She thought it was terrible.
She was not a fan.
And I was like, you couldn't be more wrong about
and
that.
I put in my notes that Dan Aykroyd's a bad actor, and maybe it's because he's being really, really deadpan.
Yeah.
But the whole time he's just very wooden the way he kind of says things. He doesn't inflect a lot. He doesn't.
I mean, I think, but he and Jake. I think Jake is a little more animated. John Belushi is a little more animated because obviously
he does flips.
He sees the light. Yeah, his stunt person does flips for him. But yeah, and Elwood is much more just we're gonna do this. Whatnot.
I do think the stuff at the I do remember one time I laughed was when he was trying to win him over with a car. And he's like, he's like, it's got a 54 engine or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Jim Belushi's like, you got to fix the cigarette lighter. Yeah. Like, where's moments before you just threw it out the window?
He tries to
I thought that was funny. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, you brought up the country bar. I like that when they get there. He goes, what kind of music do you play in this establishment? She goes, oh, we have both kinds, country and Western. Yeah. That's funny.
I feel I've heard that joke before, but maybe it's because of this movie.
Maybe.
I've heard that joke, right?
But just, again, the whole absurdity, all the cars they crash in this movie is insane. It held like a Guinness World Record for the number of cars.
Until like G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Blues Brothers 2000 surpasses it, and then G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra now holds the record. They wrecked like 112 cars or something like that in that movie. This movie was 103 or 104, I can't remember which. All the car crashes, because I love stunts.
Yeah.
So even if the movie was just that, I mean, it's just a demolition derby, the whole movie, I'd probably eat it up. They crash a lot of cars, and when they drive through the mall, I love that part. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. He's like, all right, we got to get out of this parking lot. So they just decide to drive through the mall. The cops follow them. Yeah. They're crashing into every store. And hey, Pier 1 Imports. Bam, just crashing. It's an absurd, again, I can't help but think of a movie like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World or something like that, where people are driving around a lot, or Cannonball Run, where people are driving around a lot and just, you've got all these crazy stunts. And the beginning, when they don't want to wait for the drawbridge to come down, so he just jumps it. Yeah. And then at the end, or towards the end, when they're being followed by everybody and their dog, and they drive to the end of that bridge, and then they go in reverse, and then the car does a backflip. The car flips like this and turns it, and then they drop the car that Henry Gibson is in. Yeah. And the one guy's like, I've always loved you. I mean, it's an absurd film. It has moments of absurd humor. And then you couple it with all the different musicians who, a lot of them aren't even around anymore, like James Brown and Ray Charles and Aretha. All of them have gone on. John Lee Hooker, Cab Calloway. It's just, I think it shouldn't work when it's all mixed together, but for me, it does. Even at 2.5 hours. And the theatrical version is still over 2 hours. So even if you cut out the extended footage, it's still over 2 hours. So it commits the cardinal sin of being longer than 2 hours. But in this case, I give it a pass. I don't care. I think it's a good and funny film.
So I need to mark this on my calendar to revisit in 10 years.
Revisit it. No, don't wait 10 years. Just a few years, maybe.
More. A few years.
So after...
I totally get it. Like I said, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Maybe it wasn't my day. Who knows?
Well, Kirby didn't like it either. So both of you guys need to revisit it. I was going to say earlier that I forgot, but I was mentioning John Landis. He saw James Brown in concert, and then he was able to work with James Brown. I saw B.B. King in concert, and then B.B. King died shortly after. So that's all that happened when I saw somebody in concert from this movie. Anyway, John Belushi, of course, everyone knows he sadly passed in 1982. His last completed film was a movie called Neighbors. John Landis went on to do American Werewolf in London, which we did last October. Yep. He did the Twilight Zone movie, which was a nightmare, and some bad things happened on that, but we're not going to discuss that. But then he went on to do the Thriller video, which honestly, when they're out in the street doing the shake a tail feather dances, that reminded me a lot of the Thriller choreography and I was like, oh, I can see why, of course, Michael Jackson saw An American Werewolf in London, and he was like, those werewolf effects are amazing.
Yeah,
I want to do that for Thriller. So that's kind of why he tapped John Landis, not necessarily for the dance moves.
Was there
not that John Landis was the choreographer, he wasn't.
Was there a See You Next Tuesday joke in this?
Yes, the highway troopers are behind a See You Next Wednesday sign.
Okay, See You Next Wednesday.
Yeah, when they're hiding and they go after them for speeding, and then they get run into by the good old boys, the country guys.
You mentioning American Werewolf in London reminded me of that.
Yeah, he always says "See you next Wednesday" somewhere in his films. It was followed by a sequel, which you said you have seen, Blues Brothers 2000. That came out in 1998. Did not come out in 2000, although it's called Blues Brothers 2000. I know,
confusing.
It has Paul Schaefer in it because Paul Schaefer was supposed to be in the original Blues Brothers, but he couldn't be because he was too tied up doing with other commitments. At the time, but he is in the Blues Brothers 2000 film. It also has Aretha. It also has James Brown. Cab Calloway had passed away. Ray Charles, was still alive at that point, but he was not in the movie. But it's got a few other musicians that aren't in the first film.
Erykah Badu's in it, right?
Erykah Badu's in it, and I actually really like the number. She
I
doesn't sing a lot in that number, but she does do some. I think she's just really good.
Because I remember it being having this kind of
set.
I remember having this gypsy kind of.
It's like a voodoo kind of. Yeah. Louisiana.
I remember that being really good.
So I did not say this in the what we've been watching, but I watched the sequel after I watched this film because I had never seen it. I don't think the sequel is as good as the original film, and in fact, when I first started watching the sequel, I was really kind of hating on it in my mind as I was kind of going through it because they just basically recycle a lot of the stuff that they do from the original film.
Yeah.
But I think the musical numbers are still really good in the sequel. I love Joe Morton. He's an addition to it. And John Goodman's okay. That funky Nassau number kind of is a standout. But at the end, they assembled the band to end all bands. They're called the Louisiana Gator Boys because the end of the film has a battle of the bands between the Blues Brothers and the Louisiana Gator Boys. Louisiana Gator Boys has B.B. King, Eric Clapton, Dr. John, Jeff Skunk Baxter, Steve Winwood, and on, Bo Diddley. You just keep going. They assembled so many people for that band. It's just awesome. You're just in awe at the amount of talent that is on the stage. So I would say the movie overall is okay. It's actually not that bad. I don't think it's nearly as good as the original Blues Brothers, but it's not. I don't think it's as bad because it was panned when it came out in 1998, not 2000. I don't think it's as bad. Actually, Gene Siskel though gave it thumbs up. I think I agree with him actually, and I didn't when I first started watching it, but as it kind of went on, I was like, this isn't that bad.
Yeah,
it's decent. Also, there's Blues Brothers video games. If you have your emulator or if you have an old system, you can play. There's one for the Nintendo, there's one for the Super Nintendo, and there's one for the Nintendo 64.
This is like the number one movie I would not think would ever have video game tie-in, but apparently there is.
Yeah, and some of them you can also play on your PC or whatever. So if you're into that. 73% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 92% audience score. It got 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. Of course, they're both Chicago guys. This movie takes place in and around Chicago part of the time. I think all the time. Gene Siskel actually put it as number 8 on his top 10 list from 1980. Did not make Roger Ebert's top 10 list. And Leonard Maltin gives it 3 stars.
All right. So that's Blues Brothers, guys. Let us know what you think. I'm sure most of you feel with Andy, you think it's a stone cold classic, you think it's hilarious. But if you're in my neck of the woods, you're more than welcome to let us know how you feel about that movie. Leave us a comment down below if you're watching us on YouTube, or shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. We also answer viewer questions that are sent to that email address, so please just shoot us those questions. You want to say something?
I was just going to say what I paired it with.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I jump ahead.
So this movie has some guys that wear suits and dark glasses, and it's kind of a road movie in a sense. They're traveling kind of from point A to point B, trying to get all their band members back together and then make it to the final concert venue. So I chose another film that I kind of wanted to shine a spotlight on, also about some guys that wear dark suits and dark glasses. Their hairstyle is a little different, and their shoes are a little different, and their musical style is a little different, and they're not American. They're the Leningrad Cowboys. Go America. We'll talk about that next time.
All right, guys. So stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll talk about Leningrad Cowboys. Go America. We'll see you soon on Wednesday. Bye.